Last weekend, I had buyers fly in from out of state. We toured 25 properties together over 2 days, and by Monday, they had an offer accepted. If this seems too good to be true or like it's off of some reality show about real estate, that's because what you don't see is that the real strategy started a year ago. Hi, I'm Victoria Canizzo, a real estate specialist in New Jersey. Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to talk to you about how I work with buyers who are coming from out of state and don't really know the area. And in particular, this couple who came out last weekend. So you can really understand my strategy with out of town buyers and also the things that I'm looking at and maybe how you should be approaching thinking about a purchase when you're out of state. So, about a year ago, I was introduced to my buyers and we discussed their goals. Ultimately, they want a pied-à-terre, a crash pad near New York City. But in the short term, their daughter is graduating from college this spring, and their goal is to get a property where she can live while she starts to audition for Broadway. It's very, very supportive of her parents, really very lovely. But because of this, I really had to take into account both of their needs and desires, right? So the parents have an interesting background. The wife was a ballerina before she went into another field and lived in the East Village of Manhattan, but over 25 years ago. So things have changed a little bit, and real estate is a bit unattainable in Manhattan in what they're looking for. Although we did show them some properties there as well. The husband's never lived in Manhattan, but loves the energy of the city and is looking forward to using this property over the coming years. In any case, we started discussing exactly what they wanted and what they thought would be best for their daughter. Again, she'll be commuting into New York City for auditions, which mostly occur in Midtown West, not necessarily the place that her parents eventually would want to go into the city. So we have to take those two things into account. And so we had a nice long conversation about a year ago, going through their price point and all the things that they really wanted me to take into account in the search. And then every couple of months, we would have a check-in about what was happening in the market. As you may or may not know, my area of New Jersey is still very competitive compared to the rest of the country, but the area near Manhattan is not always as competitive as some of the suburbs a little further out. So that was to their benefit, definitely. In any case, every few months we would have a check-in. I would kind of give them market updates. And then about a month out from their trip, we had a much more in-depth discussion about current inventory, the properties that were available, and some of the suggestions that I had. So I'm going to take you through some of the showings that we did last weekend, talk about what I brought up to them, if it was a property I suggested or one that stood out to them, and show you some of the photos so you can get a sense of this together. I love this process with out-of-town buyers. It gives me a chance over a long period of time to educate them on different areas and what might or might not appeal to them about different neighborhoods. So here we go. So this is actually our first tour. It is 271 York Street, number 8, in Jersey City downtown. Now this is right on the edge of Van Voorst Park, and potentially the best neighborhood of all of the units that we saw over the weekend. Really, really convenient to some amazing restaurants and very walkable to the Grove Street Path station. This apartment has 571 square feet. The taxes yearly are $10,529 with $434 a month in HOA. So that comes to about $1,311 a month. This is a 4th floor walk-up, as I said before. It's on the smaller side, but it was very charming. Here are the photos. Okay, you can see hardwood floors, nice light fixture, not the hugest living room, but that's a massive storage closet. One of my concerns about this, you can see here that the kitchen's been renovated, but it's really hard to see into that corner. I didn't even see a stove for the longest time. I was very confused as to where the stove was, but it actually is tucked away in the back corner over there. So very much a galley kitchen, but this was one of the ones that I was more concerned about. They were actually really taken by this. The full bath is to the left. There's actually a washer dryer combo in there and a lovely shower. It's been renovated. And then up there, you can kind of see that there's a stove top. It's an electric top on top of that oven. And there's the washer dryer. renovated. This is the bedroom. That's the door that goes to the living room. This had a very big closet. There you can see it. It's really a walk-in closet. Obviously no central air, but very beautiful hardwood floors and high ceilings. It didn't feel as small as you would think 571 square feet would be. But one of the things that I'm always concentrating on, especially for any buyer, but especially an out-of-town buyer, is what their goals are in terms of how long they're going to hold the property. So in this case, they have no real desire, definitely at least 5 years and potentially longer. But I'm always thinking about resale, and a fourth floor walk up could be tricky for resale. So that was one of the downsides to this apartment. But overall, they really liked this. And I think it would have been a great choice. This was a little shared outdoor area that was very sweet. Same. This is the other side of it. This is the storage unit. And then there was same storage unit. And then there was just one washer and dryer for the whole building. That was another bit of a downside. Another apartment that we saw that same day is 343 4th Street. It's Unit 6 in Jersey City downtown. Now this has 634 square feet, $9,898 a year in taxes, and $625 a month in HOA. So that brings it to about $1,450 a month in total cost of taxes and HOA. Now, this kept coming up on my searches, and every single time I would look at these photos and try and figure out how in the world someone could get furniture up those circular stairs. So again, back to the idea of resale. Even if my buyers could deal with the kind of quirks of this apartment, I was very concerned about resale. And although it was better than I thought when we saw it in person, I was not wrong. The wife liked this a lot. The husband agreed with me. So here you can see this is the main living space. And to the right, you can kind of see down there's a dining room and a kitchen. And then, of course, the circular stairs that go up. Let me show you the rest of these. It was a very charming space, but very tight. The exposed brick was very charming. The kitchen had been redone. It's small, but totally serviceable. That is a teeny tiny dishwasher, but really lovely. Like, this was lovingly done. Okay, now we're on the second floor. There is a bedroom and a bathroom on the second floor. And this is where I was scratching my head, because how did they get that big piece of furniture up those circular stairs? What I didn't see is that there's actually a door here. You can't see it either, but if we were to go stand in that corner with the window and look back, there's actually a door to the hallway on, I guess, I can't remember what floor this was on. I want to say it would have been the 4th floor then, where you could have gotten furniture in. There is, however, no access to the 3rd floor where the second bedroom is located. They're not using it as a bedroom. They're using it as a closet. This is virtually staged as a bedroom, but it's actually like a big walk-in closet. And it has outdoor access, which is very cool. I think that's what was intriguing to my buyers. This is the bathroom on the second floor. Lovely, completely renovated. Again, everything had been done really thoughtfully. Now, it's a little unclear here, but where the stairs are located, that splits the deck in two. So there's an apartment on the other side. You can see that there are 2 doors. So you have half of this deck. It's cool. This is very vertical living. Great view. Again, 1 washer dryer, storage unit, and a little backyard. That's the exterior of the building. I did think this was better than it shows in the photos, but I stand by my statement that this would be difficult on resale. The third example is 299 8th Street, Unit 3L. This is about 600 square feet. It's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, very close to Hamilton Park. Now, it has about $8,000 in taxes per year and $386 a month in HOA. So that's just a little over $1,000, $1,053 a month. This is actually the most inexpensive monthly carry of any of the units we saw all weekend. You can see from the photos that it was really beautifully staged. It has very high ceilings and a lot of gorgeous historic details. I'm not sure if you can tell, but if you look by the windows, those are actually shutters that are built in. So they come out and go back in. The fireplace is no longer functioning. And as you go through, tons of light, really large windows. So that's the front door. There's those built-in storage area. And then the kitchen has been renovated, but not recently. This one needs new appliances, but it's really nicely laid out. It felt bigger than what the square footage says, especially in contrast to the last one that was multi-level. But you can see these are very old utilities. The some of the cabinets were not in great shape. There's a nice new countertop. The refrigerator was kind of screaming while we were there, so definitely will need to be replaced. As we go through, it's a mix of hardwood and tile on the floors. It showed really beautifully, really a ton of light. The bathroom also not super updated. Tons of light in the bedroom, a nice large closet. There you go. You can kind of see the tub and a very old sink, but very charming. Everything functions. There's actually room in this one to add a washer dryer if you reconfigure the way that the bathroom is laid out. This is just the hallway, the front of the building. There was a much nicer laundry area in the basement. I'm not sure if that's in these photos. Here's the floor plan. I love it when we can see a floor plan. So kind of a railroad style, but tons of light in both areas. Yeah. So this falls under a category of places that I started to suggest to them. I've actually been working with a number of buyers in around the same price range as my out-of-town buyers, and this is one of the buildings that I discovered for another buyer. And when I saw it, I immediately thought of my out-of-town buyers because it's technically in Jersey City downtown, but it's right on the border of Hoboken. So it's just a little over a half a mile to the Hoboken station, one of the most direct ways to take the path into the city, and also to the southern end of Hoboken, with tons of shops and restaurants. So I loved that about it. This building has a 24-hour concierge. It also has a gym. And as you can imagine, that increases the HOA. So this unit, number 908 at the Zephyr Lofts, is 896 square feet. There's a full-time doorman and a gym, as I mentioned. The taxes are $89.22 a year, and the monthly is $1,117 per month. So you can see the differential. That brings it to $1,860 about per month in taxes and HOA. So let's show you. This is the exterior of the building. More exterior, lobby. Okay, this is inside of the unit. Some of these have been converted. These little alcoves have been converted to porches, but this one is just a little sunroom. I believe the owner was using it, yes, as a little office. The ceilings are really high in Zephyr Lofts. You can tell just by the pieces of furniture and where the TV is. It makes smaller square footage feel really generous, and it's a lovely energy in the space. The one strange thing was that the bedroom doors are French doors. So there's kind of no separation between bedroom and living space. That's an easy fix, even with some curtains. These were lovely wooden floors and a very modern, updated kitchen. You again can tell how high the ceilings are from how much space there is above the cabinets. Every unit in this building has a washer dryer full size inside of their utility room. I'm not sure that there's a photo of that, but that's a big plus. There you are. There are actually curtains, but you can see that this opens to the living space, which is a little bit strange. The bathroom is probably not original, but not as updated as some of the other ones that I've seen. This was also a little bit more reasonable. Here's the gym, mail room, a little outdoor space. Okay, I think that's all for these photos. The floor plan. So you can see where the washer dryers with the HVAC. Anyway, ultimately a very cool unit. It was not my client's favorite. In the final month of us exploring, I was looking at available inventory and I discovered a building that I knew from the exterior but had never shown an apartment in before. It's called the Doric, and it's right on the edge of Union City and Weehawken, or kind of up the cliff from Hoboken. So there's an elevator that goes down to Hoboken. There's a bridge that you can walk down into Hoboken, but it's up on a hill. So the views are spectacular. It also happens to be a co-op building. All of the other units that I showed them that weekend were condos for a very specific reason. Co-ops in general can be a little bit more challenging to work with The way in which they differ is that a condo is a little bit more similar to buying a single family home in the sense that you actually own everything inside of the walls of the unit. With a single family home, of course, you own the land as well. But with a co op, it's based on shares of a corporation. So when the building was built, the shares of the corporation were divided per unit depending on where they were in the building, how large they were, what kinds of views they had, etc. And those shares, the number of shares don't change. So your monthly charge is based on that. It includes taxes, maintenance, and very often utilities. In the case of the Doric, which is 100 Manhattan Avenue in Union City, that includes heat, water, and electricity. So everything but Wi-Fi, which is kind of amazing. It does increase the fees, however. Okay, so there were 3 units that I'm going to show you in the building. We actually saw 13 in this building. I thought I'd show you the ones that were really the closest to being a good fit for my buyers. The first is unit 1208. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with 1,043 square feet and $2,244 per month. So as I said, more expensive, but includes more. This is also a full service building. So there's 24-hour concierge, there's a gym, there's a bodega, there's a business center, there's a room that you can rent out for events, there's a massive pool that looks onto the New York skyline, there's parking available, you name it. There are a lot of amenities, a very big laundry room. So now to the pictures. You can see in this photo that it looks furnished. It's actually virtually staged. And so it's vacant in person, but this unit has been really beautifully renovated. Big kitchen. They opened up the wall here. A lot of the original units still have a wall closing off the kitchen, which makes it feel very disjointed. When they open up the walls, it really does a lot for the living space. They also installed hi-hat lights throughout the apartment, which makes a huge difference. Not all of the apartments that we saw in the building had hi-hats. So you can see very renovated, beautiful butler's pantry with a drink fridge, nice living space. That's a private balcony, which you'll see in a moment. This is the primary bedroom suite. Actually, that door open is a bathroom en suite. This can fit a king size bed very easily. Here's the primary bath, updated probably in the last 15 years, but very lovely. Not a huge bathroom, but nice. This is the second bedroom, again, large in size, almost equal to the primary. And the hall bath has been updated more recently than the primary bath. Here's the private terrace, gorgeous views of the city. I'm going to scroll through some of these other amenity photos a little quicker. Here is the floor plan. You can see the second bedroom is smaller, but almost as wide as the primary. Tons of closets in this apartment for storage. The Doric. So this is the lobby area. This is a patio right next to the pool. You'll see the pool. There's a $160 charge per season to use the pool, but it's massive and has a great view. It seems ideal to me. There's also a little window that goes to the bodega so you can order sandwiches and have lunch at the pool. It's lovely. One of the pool bathrooms. This is the kind of the party area. You can rent that if you're having an event. The gym was a little more expansive than at the Zephyr Lofts. This is the business center, tennis courts, the building overall. I was very happy to learn more about this building as I was exploring it for these clients. Unit 1316 is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath that's been renovated in the building. It's 780 square feet and the monthly charge is $1,709 per month. Now, this one is actually furnished. It's still owner occupied and very beautifully renovated. You can see they left a beam around the kitchen. That's where it's normally walled in. So it's kind of nice because the pendant lights hang from it, but you can imagine if that's closed off, how disjointed the living space is. This was very nicely done. Plenty of space. I was thinking, as I suggested some 2-bedroom, 2-bath units to them, that it would be nice if they could also use the unit while the daughter was living there, especially since some of them were the same price point as 1-bedroom, 1-baths. I don't think they do intend to use it while she lives there very much, but that was what was going through my mind as I was looking at available properties. In any case, I'll take you through this particular unit now. You can see the living space is quite nice. It has the original doors to the closets, which are actually metal. They've been painted, but I liked them. The bathroom was renovated, has a lovely soaking tub. This is the primary bedroom. That is a king bed. It's a massive closet over to the right, and this actually shows the view a little nicer than while we were there. It's a little later in the year or earlier in the year now, so there's no foliage left on the trees, and that didn't look great. I would say the best part about it is that most of the time when you're on the bed, you're not going to be looking down out the window. You're just going to see the skyline. This is the private balcony. Some other photos of the building. So I'll go through those quickly. There's that bodega I mentioned. In any case, this was a lovely unit and I think was a contender for them. It's not what they ultimately chose. The final unit that we saw at the Doric was number 1912. Now, this is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit, but with more square footage than the first 2-bedroom, 2-bath I showed earlier. This one has a little alcove off of the living room that makes it about 100 more square feet. So it's 1140 square feet, and the charges per month are $22.24 per month. Okay. So again, this one was virtually staged. In person, it was vacant, but it was a nice amount of space. I will say one of the biggest detractors was the fact that there's no overhead lighting. So those pendant lights are part of the virtual staging. This would benefit from some of those hi-hat lights we saw in the first apartment. Okay. The closets here had all been outfitted with Alpha storage, which was a nice touch. And this is the primary bedroom with a renovated ensuite bathroom. Very clean. Second bedroom, back to the primary vacant. This is the second bedroom vacant. And here's the living space again with that alcove I was telling you about. It really does increase. And this is the hall bath, also recently renovated. More virtual staging photos. Oh, that was a real one. That's a little bit more like what we saw, except there was no desk in the corner or lights. In any case, this was actually facing like where the pool is. And so you had the building on one side. All of the other ones that had views that we saw in the building were just facing out towards Manhattan. This was a little interesting in that. Kitchen is updated, but not as updated or as modern as the more white kitchens. And here are just amenity photos. This one had more square footage, but was not quite as updated as the first. Okay, you've seen these amenity photos again. This, however, was a contender for my people just based on the price. The price was lower than the first 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Even though the monthly was still high, this could have been manageable for them, especially with some flexibility in that listing price, but ultimately was not the property that they chose. Now that you've seen firsthand some of the properties they saw over their marathon weekend, I'm curious to hear which one you think they bought. We're just about to be under contract, so I'm not going to share the details about this yet. I'll do a follow-up about that. But it was an amazing experience to be able to educate them about different areas and figure out what ultimately would be the best marriage of what they need and what their daughter needs. So I share all of this with you to show you how I strategize with buyers coming in from really outside of our area and how we can make successful strategic choices that result in an easy transaction for buyers.